one of the things that you could do to really get the most benefit out of this is if they want to engage in a short sale, you be the listing agent and then find out who the investors were that gave them offers, and I mean every one of them, and then go find a referral agent from another brokerage to represent those investors and have them make offers on a 50-50 referral agreement. So you get the whole list side and half of the buy side because you're just handing them buyers.
Wow. Yeah, that's some great advice. That's genius right there.
Welcome, amazing agents and investors nationwide. Today is Thursday, and this is Mastermind call number 283. Let's go to our first caller.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Great. How about you?
Doing great. Excited to be on the call. We've been listening for probably 2 or 3 weeks now, learning a lot of info. So we're excited to finally be applying it, and actually have ran into a situation that we had a question for you guys about. We were hitting the calls yesterday, and we came across a person that is in a pretty bad situation. His parents died, and he inherited a house that is currently on a reverse mortgage. And he said he owes more on the house than what it's worth. And he's already had some investors come out and look to see if they would be interested in buying it. But upon finding out more information, they just said they can't make the numbers work. And it sounds like he had kind of given up on it as being a possibility of him doing anything on. And we've got an appointment scheduled to go check the house out on Monday. But we were wondering what kind of options or plays there were in the situation of the reverse mortgage where they're in more than it's worth.
This is a great opportunity for a short sale. Intuitively, you would think, well, the family doesn't have a lot to gain. You know, they probably will just let it go to foreclosure. And we have really been amazed how many families, even though they don't have a lot to gain, they don't really want to see grandma or mom and dad's house get foreclosed. So the good news is a large percentage of them will cooperate on a short sale. The better news is there's really not much for them to do. A normal short sale, you have to have financials, you have to have bank statements, and obviously if the person on the mortgage is deceased, none of that applies. Make sure that the seller will cooperate, but basically they would just have to sign an authorization for a short sale negotiator or a short sale company like my wife's to handle the dealings with the bank, and they're pretty much done with it. And then of course they'd have to sign the deed at the closing. Sometimes the lenders will still give them a relocation, which is kind of funny because obviously the person's already relocated. Maybe 10% of the time they may get a little bit of moving money. Most of the time they won't. There's not a real financial incentive. If the estate has significant assets, there could be an incentive for them to not get liens against the estate, which, probably won't, but could, affect the other assets of the estate. So I guess to summarize, I would just let the seller know that, hey, let's treat this as a short sale, and, you could just have your investors get in line and make offers. I will tell you, though, it's probably more than likely going to be a owner-occupied property. The lenders will take less than the property's worth, but probably not enough of a discount for most investors. But it's not unusual for them to take maybe 10 or 15% less than the property's worth, not to have to foreclose. So I would just say, find a good short sale company. If you need one, I'll shamelessly give a plug for my wife's. It's Nationwide Short Sale Solutions, and her phone number is 954-584-0000. And if you didn't get that, just email me, Jim at All the Leads, and I'll connect you with her. But all you really have to do is introduce her to the seller, and she can handle it, kind of start to finish.
So typically that's all you can do with those. If it's a reverse and it's underwater significantly, that's about all you can do. But if there were, one of the questions I had was, is it a single lien? Like, is it just that mortgage that's putting the home underwater, or is there are there other mortgages or liens attached in second position or subsequent and subordinate positions? Because if that's the case, like for example, let's say the house is worth 200, you've got a reverse mortgage for 100, and a Medicaid lien or a hospital lien for 100. You can sometimes negotiate off that second lien, or for example, you could have a reverse mortgage and a HELOC, and that's unlikely stacked, but you can sometimes negotiate with that second place lender because they know they're going to get nothing, and you can settle them out for pennies on the dollar, and then you can actually sell conventionally once you get that second place lien cleared. That's just something I wanted to mention in the future when you encounter these. Make sure you find out what the total debt stack is, because if it's broken apart, whoever's in the subordinate positions they're very motivated to negotiate with you, and you can sometimes rebuild equity just through negotiating with the debtors.
Yeah, for sure. One other question that I've been thinking of while you guys were talking was, they actually had the foreclosure filing on 3/16. So back in March, they had started the process. He said that he just wants to get out of it at this point. There is no other solutions he wants other than to get out of this situation. And I am a realtor, and we were wondering if it would be better to get the short sale company to do it, or if we could get the listing ourselves.
Well,
Both.
I would say both. Yeah, absolutely both. If the foreclosure's been filed, as long as there's no sale date scheduled within the next 30 days, the short sale company can almost always, or you could probably do it yourself if you knew what you were doing, you can almost always get the sale stopped at least once or twice. And the short sale companies like my wife's, or any of them, you still get your real estate commission. You list the property. They just handle the paperwork and all the dealings with the bank, and they basically get their fee out of the deal. It doesn't come out of your commission. As a matter of fact, the lenders insist that the property be listed because they want to see that you're making an effort to get close to market value.
Yeah, that's great. That is great.
And here's the play for you, because the family's pretty checked out. They don't really care. One of the things that you could do to really get the most benefit out of this is, if they want to engage in a short sale, you be the listing agent, and then find out who the investors were that gave them offers, and I mean every one of them, and then go find a referral agent from another brokerage to represent those investors and have them make offers on a 50-50 referral agreement. So you get the whole list side and half of the buy side, because you're just handing them buyers. And if the negotiator is going to see that there's two separate brokerages involved, they usually won't trim your commission. If you try to do it through the same brokerage, oftentimes they'll cut you down to like 3%. So that's why I'm recommending you find a referral agent to just hand it to on a silver platter and let them represent the buyers that have already tried to make offer or have already made verbal offers. That way you can get a little bit more out of the deal.
Wow. Yeah, that's some great advice. That's genius right there. What about the possibility of, they mentioned that the place had never been touched. It was not updated at all. He mentioned kind of hoarder house. There's a lot of stuff in there. What about the possibility of getting the listing and then partnering with an investor or bringing in some private money to try to buy it and then flip it ourselves?
Yeah, so, it's certainly a possibility. Generally, though, there's exceptions, but generally the lenders are going to do an appraisal, and they don't usually sell at investor prices. There's exceptions. I mean, if you can show a lot of repairs, if you can show it's in real bad shape, there's a chance you can do that for sure. But usually
if you look up if you find out which bank it is and look up their health score, look how many distressed assets they have on their balance sheet. Oftentimes, if they're really hurting and they know they can get liquidity, like right now we're coming into the part of the cycle where you can get the deepest discounts on short sales, because banks are they have major liquidity issues. So you can do your homework and kind of see the likelihood. Like if you look at the FDIC filings for that institution, you can see, how many bad assets they have on their books. And the more bad assets they have, the more motivated they are to start clearing them so they can get liquidity and make new loans. So there's a possibility. What I would say is if you're going to be the listing agent, you should have an entity that is in no way associated with your name. So it doesn't look like, well, you should have just make sure to cover your assets if you're doing that. You don't want it to appear as fraud, like you're acting as in an agency position representing the sell side of the transaction, but then you're going around and you're also participating on the buy side. And some folks get themselves in hot water with short sales because of that. So what you may want to be the lender on the deal. So maybe you're the listing agent and you loan money to the investor that flips it, and you take your profit as a lender, not as a principal. That's a cleaner deal where you could still get the profit, but you would earn profit as interest, not as equity.
Yeah, that's some great advice there for sure. Definitely some avenues we hadn't thought of. So yeah, that's great. Awesome. Well, yeah, I think that answered quite a bit for our situation. So thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it.
All right. Appreciate you. Thanks for participating. Next up
just so everybody else knows, 67% of homes in probate are free and clear. So sometimes we troubleshoot these more complex deals. Everyone's going to find that like this is a place that we oftentimes transaction engineer the more difficult scenarios. Typically, these deals are pretty cut and dry. They're pretty straightforward. We got a little creative on that one, but the vast majority of these are held free and clear. And the ones that do have encumbrances, like debt against them, it's usually a HELOC or a reverse mortgage. So they're not really complex. So if you're just getting started, don't be alarmed. They're not all that tough.
Yep. Next up is a frequent contributor. Renee, you're up next.
Hello, guys. I think that I don't know if I have an actual question. It's more just to think out loud, and I probably know the answers, but I'd love to hear where I can be better or do better. So I am currently going through, and will be complete by the end of next week or sooner, every single lead that I've had, and like re-going through the system to make sure that, updating it. Did it sell? What have you? What I'm finding is that there's a lot of, not interested, not selling. When I put unable to contact, that means that the phone numbers I have are not correct. So I guess it's like the question being, I have more of that than actual follow-up. So what do I do with all these potentials outside of just mailing them that I could utilize? Because it feels like there's not really a lot in there. And I'm going to probably be going on a year in August. So it's not as all the leads is just getting me what they're getting me. I just want to know what I can do better and be better with one area of LA, because the other areas are not open. So I kind of just have one chunk of the county.
So you were on at least one of the calls where we talked about Facebook ads in depth, weren't you?
Yeah.
That's your X factor.
Okay.
So I can't remember which mastermind call it was. It's been in the last time we discussed it was in the last 3 or 4 calls. Kat will link it in the show notes for this episode.
Okay.
After the call, I wish I had it in front of me, but I don't. But there's been 2 episodes, maybe 3 in the last couple of months where we kind of really pulled that apart and talked about it at length. That's your best shot. I mean, if you're just not, you're in one of those markets where people are more privacy conscious, and it is more difficult to get the right phone numbers. If we don't have their numbers and they're not responding to our direct mail, obviously building your referral network is one way of doing it. But As far as a direct response, you need to get some videos on Facebook and get in front of them multiple times per day at, pennies per impression. And over time, when they're ready, they'll think, you're going to look like a huge, they're going to see you everywhere. They're going to see you on Instagram, on Facebook, like on other websites, because you're going to have a small audience that you're targeting your budget at. So you're going to have, 10 to 20 daily impressions on those people. And that's your best chance.
Okay,
Renee,
and with the Facebook ads, yeah. Go ahead.
Are we able to, I was just going to ask, are we able to get you emails in your market or not? Are you getting them with your leads?
Not really. I mean,
no? Okay.
And that's not just you guys. That's kind of like being across my experience in the last, 15 years of even doing this when email was more prevalent, I still never got that much. So what works best, it seems, in this market is either obviously networking, right? That ends up being like a warm lead no matter what you're doing. I'm making a blanketed statement, not a probate statement, but it's that or direct mail, but just at a higher level. The investors I know are just blasting out stuff. And I do get responses and feedback from the phone. It just seems like it takes a lot longer. And then whatever phone numbers I typically get, they're not always good. So it's not a fault of someone. It's just a matter of, trying to get in front of these people. Because then what I'm seeing is whether I was ever going to be the favorite or not, I still don't feel like my name was even in the hat. Because as I'm going through stuff, I'm seeing where either people said initially they were not interested, which probably means they had a real estate agent on the line, because now I'm going through stuff a couple of more months later, 3, 4, 5 months later, and those properties have sold. And when I look to see the date I got it, like I might be calling January's list, they told me in January, oh, I'm not interested. So anyway, I'm meshing two things together here. I'm just trying to figure out the highest and best use of my time, and it's a little frustrating because, me actually getting in, my at-bats of getting in front of people outside of just direct mail and now, Facebook, it just seems slim to none. So I guess my overarching question is, when you're talking to people in bigger markets or markets like mine, is this somewhat of a theme or what? I just don't want to keep burning time hoping for something else when I could be spending it somewhere else.
No, I mean, like even in like New York City, which is super competitive and high net worth.
Like here.
The phones are the X factor. Like that's where our folks do really well. Like even if the mail is not performing the way they want it to, if they double down on the phones, they usually get a result. Like Seth in his first year, I think, did like $1 million in his first year as a real estate agent in Midtown.
Yeah.
So their X factor is the phone. But I was, since we're assuming that you've already exhausted that option, you've already exhausted direct mail, that's why I suggested Facebook. So, you could, and the other thing I would think, I had an idea. It's going to depend on, where do you believe property values are headed in the next 12 months in your market?
Well, we have so many micro markets, but just to give you the short answer, I think it'll quote unquote decrease a little bit from where it should have been. It was so inflated, so it's just going to flatten out. But some certain micro markets may not.
You think it's in the seller's best interest to take advantage of the rally we're in, right?
Yeah.
So you may change your message from a probate services message to a catch the falling knife message and market to them via newsletter. So you could do a Los Angeles County Court update where you and Bill Gross actually go interview these people. I know that you have a relationship with him, and he's doing it already, so he would probably help you with this. And you guys could collaborate to create a newsletter. So the first section of the newsletter could be an update on Los Angeles County probate proceedings, where you just talk about what's happening and how long the backlogs are and what they could expect. And then the second part is a real estate update. And you could do one side court, one side real estate, or one side probate, one side real estate. And show them what's happening in your local court environment, and then flip it over and show them what's happening in your local real estate market and what your prediction is for where that's headed, And I would even run an example of the holding costs of a $600,000 house if they have to sit and hold it for 6 months, and then there's even a 10% price correction, which is very, very likely. But put the math down there, like run us like 2 columns. Scenario 1 is selling in the next 60 days. Scenario 2 is selling in the next 6 months. And just use your best professional opinion of where the market's headed and what your price correction might be. What you're seeing is rents have already softened like 9% in your city. That alone, and with Airbnb basically being non-existent right now, and all the speculative buying in Los Angeles and in the short-term rental space, the numbers aren't in, but your prices are going to correct. So if you can use that to kind of bring that into their awareness, because there's so much good news in the housing market right now, but give it a bit, that will shift. But if you can make them aware of that they could be costing themselves a lot of money by not taking advantage of this market, and do it in a newsletter format, so you're not selling anything. You're informing them of the local probate environment and the local real estate environment. So it's a very different mail piece from what you've been sending. I would still send it in a greeting card envelope, just so you're sure that it gets opened. But you could try to develop a news, like you and John Fraker and Bill Gross. You guys are meeting already. Get together and collaborate on this, and have some commentary from John in there as a state licensed attorney. Put a quote in there, put a paragraph in there about, what he sees happening. And so it'll give you a lot of credibility, and you've already got your little group put together with.
My last thought is I am getting, on a high note, I'm getting a decent number of phone calls that I get to leave messages for that sound like they're the right person. They either have the person's outgoing name or at least it's a phone number that's answering. And so what I heard is maybe instead of it just being, well, I do your message, Chad. Hey, I sent out a message last week, message, and I'm getting a decent number of callbacks from that. I'm just curious, would you change that to a probate anything or leave that as the message? And then number 2, if they pick up, maybe instead of just saying, hey, we're a service, we pick up where the lawyer leaves off, perhaps it could be more of a newsletter type of conversation.
So I think what I would suggest, if you're going to do the newsletter idea, I would probably change your message so it works in tandem.
Yeah.
So, hey, this is Renee. I'm a probate expert here in Los Angeles County. Listen, I've done some court research as well as some market research, and I have a newsletter that I would like to send your family, but I wanted to verify the address that I should send it to. Can you please give me a call back? And
okay.
drop it like that. Leave a ton of curiosity. Let them know that you have something of value and you're trying to verify an address. That's all. And they're going to be like, what the hell is a probate expert? And what's she have to send us? And, some of them are going to be armed. So just, you're strong enough to stand up to that on the phone. I know you are. Just understand if they're armed and if they're really suspicious in the beginning, it's your job to disarm them and make them feel comfortable and trust you. So, but I think that will work, and it's because you're changing your mail piece, change your message, and if obviously send it to everybody. But before you send it, if you can get them to call to verify their address, that's a good reason to just get them on the phone.
Okay, all right, and I'll let you. Thank you with that. What's working too, at least here in this market, a more challenging market, is I've noticed when I'm calling the older leads, even if it's like 3 weeks after or 2 weeks after I've gotten the fresh leads, that I say, I'm not an investor and I'm not a lawyer. Sometimes I don't always say I'm not a lawyer, but that seems to disarm people because they're getting hounded by the investors and no one's really bringing them value. So at least they can listen to what I'm going to say. So if that's of value to anybody on the call, that seems to work. Calmly, differential and calm, but people seem to not hang up or no, we're not selling or any of that stuff. So that's a side note. Anyway, onward. I'm still enjoying this. I just want to talk to more people and be of more service, and it just kind of feels like roadblocks a little bit getting in. So let's try this approach.
Yeah, hang in there. Thanks for always participating and being willing to ask for help.
And
yeah, thank
Marie,
you.
You could always, Renee, you could always move to the Midwest, a little slightly less competitive area than.
I've already tried that. I tried to get her to move to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and she said something about not liking cows or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, listen, you know what? On a serious note on that, I'm not, willing to just per se give up on Los Angeles, but I don't also have enough pride to where I have to be here. So I know this is kind of like a tricky question for you guys to answer, but it's like, after having done this it'll be about a year, I'm wondering if I shouldn't, incorporating is starting to get a little bit costly. I just have to budget myself, initially, but I mean, I'm not opposed to going somewhere else. You know what I mean? I'm not too proud to do that. I guess I
we
want
have
to talk to
counties
someone
with
who's done it successfully.
We have some counties with like 50 to 75 leads where we have no subscribers and never have. Like, there are opportunity zones everywhere. If you're willing to work virtually, we can give you like a list of 10 counties we would recommend, and you can look, but you can basically pick a county where nobody's doing this and there's more than 50 leads a month, and you're basically guaranteed to fall into success.
Well, is that a conversation I have with you offline or the sales department or both?
Yeah.
Yeah, just talk to whomever your salesperson is. They can pull a list and show you ones where we have a good lead count but no subscribers, and then you can start to just get yourself a list of 10 markets and choose one of them that makes the most sense for you.
Okay.
And
having
said all that,
yeah,
I that's a great idea, but the time we've been exposed to you, Renee, I also know that you can make this successful in any market, even LA. It's just a lot tougher there, and I think that's what you're going through. But hang in there, and the two aren't mutually exclusive. Yep.
Yeah, thank you. And lastly, just on that note, to have closure on that for me is I don't think I'm going to do that now. That's probably like a 6-month consideration. I'm still going to exhaust what I have and then be open. I'm open is what it is. So anyway, we'll leave it at that.
All right.
As I circle back, you guys will know I'm already. All right, thank you.
Awesome, thank you. That'll be interesting when we do this recording. We'll plug you together there, the first and second half of Renee. Thank you for hanging in there.
I know. Okay, thank
you. Bruce, I know you're back, and you said you had some advice for the previous caller. You want to jump in with that?
Sure. So the previous caller, for some reason, my phone was not allowing me to chime in earlier, and I didn't catch his name, but hopefully he's back on here. One thing that I've found when you're going in on, let's say there's a reverse mortgage and a short sale, depending on how far underwater it is, because the last thing that he had mentioned when he kind of was about to jump off the phone was maybe just buying the house himself. One of the things that a few of our subscribers are doing, and I'm currently experimenting with, is actually going in as with an investment and not buying the house myself or ourselves, but bringing them some cash to basically make themselves right side up, add some equity into the process. So get yourself either cash yourself or an investor, invest that investor's cash into the property, boost the property value, and then if you're boosting the property value, you could almost name your commission percentage. So you could go in and say, hey, I'm going to raise your property value by 5, 10, 15% with my investor's cash, and it's going to be a 10% commission, or it's going to be an 8% commission. There are all kinds of creative ways to generate equity for our clients, and also generate an additional level of service that we could charge for on our end.
You just need to be careful with the timeline, because with a reverse mortgage, you typically have a 6-month timeline. But if they have already filed the notice of default, then they're outside of that 6-month window. They've already called the note due. So if you were to do that, you better have a really good team that you can do construction very, very quickly. Like, you need to have a very aggressive plan, because you're now on a foreclosure timeline, which in this environment, it's very likely they have judicial backlogs that is holding up the foreclosure. So it could still work, but you have to get your construction done and get it on the market and get it closed before that courthouse steps date occurs. So just be like, you can do some creative things, and just like Bruce said, you can create equity out of thin air on these. But you better know your local probate process and the timeline, and you better understand the reverse mortgage process and timeline and your local foreclosure timeline, because otherwise you have some exposure you might not be aware of on a typical deal. With a reverse mortgage, you have a tighter timeline usually. So just make sure you know what you're doing if you're going to step into one of those.
Good point. Yep.
All right. Well, we have two more in the queue. Next up is phone number ending in 6800. You're up next.
Yes. Hi. My name's Barbara, and I called in on our company line because I got cut off when everybody else did. But my question, and I'm an old agent, but I'm new to this, and I'm really excited because I can see how I will do better as time goes by. And by the way, I have listed my first listing from this, and it's under contract, and I couldn't be happier. But at any rate, in going through the lists, I have seen, I'm in Northwest Arkansas, I have seen there are a lot of them where the people have died like 4 or 5 years ago, and they're just now doing probate. And I'm in a quandary as to how do you approach a family where so much time has gone by since they have passed away.
So oftentimes, I call those retroactive probate. Oftentimes that means they just stayed in the home. Somebody was living there, and they stayed in the home after the death and just kept paying the taxes in that person's name. And then eventually they go to refinance the home, or they go to sell the home, and title won't clear. They can't close the chain of title. So they have to go back and retroactively probate the estate of whomever was on title, so that they can get them off of title.
Okay, all right.
So well, it may be part of, just where the rates decrease, since rates have decreased where they have. It could be that more people in your area are trying to refinance assets, and that's when they learn, okay, we didn't know what probate was 5 years ago. What do we need to do? It could be driven by the interest rate drop.
Okay. I've been an agent for 42 years. I've seen when we had to use creative financing. I was out in California for 34 of my career, so I've seen quite a few markets. But I am so excited about the prospect of working with people where, with the fact that I'm older, I'm competing with younger, more aggressive agents, and I either don't have it in me, or I don't think I'm as smart when it comes to using the internet. So I feel I have a value in this kind of a niche, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Barbara, and you're our winner of the week so far. You've got a success story. Thanks for on this abbreviated call. I think you got a good chance. Thanks for sharing. We appreciate you. Okay.
Thank you, guys. Okay.
All right. Take care. Next up is phone number ending in 7726. You're up next.
Hi, this is Jeff in Kansas City. I have a question about using your is it ISP for calls versus doing it directly. Do you have any sense of difference in conversion rate for the third-party calls versus the subscribers doing them directly? And then the second part of that question would be, what actually does that call look like? Is it just specifically to set an appointment? Does it they go in a little deeper? Do I have any say over what that call looks like, and what's the feedback to me from those calls?
So you're going to get a better result making your own calls because it matters more to you, and you've got a salesperson skill set, right? Like, but if that's not going to happen and you have to use a third party, the one thing to note is we no longer call, since we do DNC validation, we're not calling those numbers that are on either state, federal DNC, or a known litigant database. They get flagged, and they're not, those calls won't be made from our call center. Most individual practitioners are going to make those calls anyways. They realize that, they're comfortable with the risk, and they don't see it as a huge liability. So their contact rates are way higher because they're calling every single lead and every single number on that lead. So the difference is going to be, if you do it on your own, you're probably going to be comfortable calling all the numbers, where we will only call the non-DNC numbers. And just the contact rates will result in a higher conversion.
Can I ask you a question real quick, Chad? What ballpark of what that percentage is of the DNCs over your leads?
I'd say nationwide it's probably 60%. But it's heavier in some markets and lighter in others. Like you could imagine California, like Southern California has got, that's why Renee has some trouble. Like there's a higher prevalence of DNC registration there than there would be in Montana.
Okay. And do you think that, I'm doing we talked last week, I'm trying to put together, some budgets and looking at it, and I'm just curious to plug in that number. It seems to be a pretty important one of conversion rates for those calls. I may do the calls. I'm just trying to figure out what I want to do. But so
if you have the time, man, like if you have the time, like we always like it when the subscribers make their own calls, because nobody will ever care about your business as much as you, or more importantly, know as much about your business and your service as you. So I didn't answer the second part of your question, but in our call center, we set 80% of the appointments we set are phone appointments. 20% of the time we'll get you all the way to the front door. If we have really good engagement and we can keep it rolling and not have to go too deep into the specific services that you'll provide or anything that requires licensed conversation, or any conversation that requires licensure, then we'll get you all the way to the house. We'll get you to the front door. But that's only about 20% of the time. So there's a lot of benefit to you doing it. However, you are a business owner, and your time should be worth somewhere between $50,000 and $5,000 an hour in real estate. So if it just doesn't make sense for you to do it because you have more dollar productive activity, you can use our call center. We also have a kind of a business relationship or partnership with VoiceLogic, and they have some interesting solutions. So ringless voicemail is, I say, is an absolute don't do it right now, just because of the nature of how many attorneys need to shake people down for revenue right now. But they kind of found a loophole in TCPA. I'll give it a more fair statement. They created an innovative service that is TCPA compliant, that it has basically the same impact as ringless voicemail. So they use a live caller. They call it voicemail courier. So they'll actually use a live caller to call your list, and 20% of the time people will pick up. In that case, they will say, hey, I have a message to deliver from Jeff Johnson. Would you stay on the line to listen? 94% of the time they stay on the line to listen. And then all the other ones just get dropped as voicemail. So it's a live caller, so it's TCPA compliant, but you get basically the net result of an RVM campaign. And then the other thing is, as far as customized scripts and working directly with, the third part of your question, they do have a live call center, and they're Toronto-based, neutral accents. I've been in their call center, and they've got a good operation. But they can work with you on custom scripts and make specific calls for you. You buy blocks of minutes. So instead of where we call it a per lead basis, there you're going to buy like a block of minutes. I think it starts at $1,500. But if you want to check that out, you can go to voicelogic.com/ATL or all the leads. And there's the rundown of the three options that they offer specifically for our customers, and the discounts are on that page. So voicelogic.com/ATL.
You would put their results up with yours too? You think that they'd be similar to what you guys are doing? I mean, I like the idea that I get more calls. You know what I mean?
They've done really well. So John Michelanis, I thought I saw him on this call earlier, but he did a campaign. I think it was his first campaign. He had 7% conversion on his first live call campaign through the VoiceLogic caller. And the owner of the company, Steve, worked directly with him to get the right script. So, yeah, from what we've seen, we've had really good success with it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, guys. I guess my line has been noisy. Does it sound better now, Chad?
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Sounds
Okay,
good.
I just picked it up. I guess it was the speaker. All right, next up and last up possibly this week is phone number ending, says just James, no phone number. James, you're up next. Are you there? James.
Jimmy, Jameson.
Who's this? I guess not. All right. Well,
I was seeing if an alias or a nickname worked.
I guess not. All right. Well, Renee is back. Renee, it looks like you may be last up this week. You're back. Are you there?
Yeah.
Renee,
One last question.
7976.
Sure. Are you guys open to or willing to, if I had another list that is not a probate list, but list of homes that I'm looking for phone numbers for that title just doesn't seem to work on, if I paid for that, could that run through your system? Send
Yes,
you a CSV file?
We do that for subscribers only, and we ask that you do it in batches of at least 100. Don't send us like 2 or 3 at a time. But we have done that, and we will do that for existing subscribers, no problem.
And that's just reach out to support?
Yeah.
At all the leads?
Yeah, and I think
this is,
just support at alltheleads.com, and I believe, Tim can verify it, but I believe it's $1 for all the phone numbers. I believe that's what we basically do it really close to our cost for you.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you.
All right, you're very welcome. Well, guys, there was 100, and we started off with about 180. We were 178. We went down to 30, and about 2/3 of you came back. So sorry for the technical glitch. I think it was across multiple carriers, and it just like it happened a few days ago. I think a lot of people were affected. But thank you all for hanging in there. I want to end these calls like I always do. I want to thank all of you for being here, for hanging into the end on an interrupted call, and I want to particularly thank those who actively participated. I want to challenge each of you, take one idea, one thought, one thing that inspired you on this call, go out and put it into practice, and please come back next Thursday and share your results with the group. Thanks for being here, guys. Make it a great day. Stay healthy, and we will talk to you the same time next Thursday.